invocation. Oh, you adventurous voyagers, you who spread yourselves over a country that seemed to suit your taste, you who cultivated farms, established vineyards, erected sawmills, then actually sawed the lumber and did 1,000 other things that seemed natural to you. You have manipulated the world and gained satisfaction. You have gouged chaos out and put an eyeball in its place. I know that some of you may think that my story is the result of a disordered brain. No doubt, I am past my prime. But in my time, I have been a leader, enticing young Californians up the broad trail, concluding in distinction. I have practiced the seductive arts for the good of my kind. The rest of you can go hang. Still, I am sorry to see the last of these wetlands, the last of these covering tools, join the dead. It reminds me that success is a form of loss, a form of disenchantment. The gorgeous feather tools, in my judgment, have helped soften this fact. Now a fellow, one of my own blood, a native Californian, climbs down from his bulldozer. He points to me for his companions. They stop their enormous bug husks, switch, paused, rattle awkwardly. I rise, my legs thin like an egret's. The corner posts of my shed shiver with the damp and cold and begin to collapse. This is the present past. It is deep time. The heavy machine operator approaches me timidly, a styrofoam cup of coffee, a vexed peace offering, outstretched. Sadly, I must report that the solicitous look of dead people was in his eyes. No doubt he'll wrap me in his own jacket and seat me like a child in the cab of his monster. He'll offer me a glazed donut and a thermos of his violent coffee. That should get the heart rushing, like in the old days. A hurricano, boys! Then I'll rise, agitated as one of your hysterical sisters, voluminous as a demented house guest, in whose head a vessel has popped. Out of that rupture will rush a dismal welter of memory. What a riot! Then I'll start talking, and I'll tell everything I know. Thank you. As you can see, I'm one who, as a fiction writer, dotes on the music of language. To me, it's almost as important what it all sounds like as the story it's telling. Although I'm also a kind of fiction writer who loves the simple story, sort of like with that pool game there, as fantastic and surreal as it was. And I kind of got that love for the kind of gem-like short story from reading the great Italian writer of the late Middle Ages, Boccaccio, Decameron. So, questions?
I'm awfully glad you paused during your reading and said, I don't know what this means. Because when I read Memories of My Father watching TV, I scratched my head several times and said, I don't know what this means. Can you expound a little bit on the book? I know you talked or wrote about a lot of the old black and white TV shows that
Yeah.
enjoyed. But you took them.
A little surreal.
Right.
Yeah.
And two-part thing is, I noticed in your the insertion of the father, and there was almost a hate or made a bridge of them words.
Yeah. Yeah, one story begins in Memories of My Father watching TV. It begins, my father was a pontoon bridge over a narrow French river. And he was serving the Nazis, and this was all in a story about the television show Combat, which some of you may remember. I think all of those shows are sort of somewhere on TV still, in TV Land or Nick at Night or something like that. Bonanza, Paladin, Have Gun Will Travel, Maverick, all of those cowboy shows that I watched with my dad when I was growing up. I mean, there is something always sort of surreal and dreamlike about my work. There's it's part of an effort to both tell the truth, but insist that the truth is not to be found actually in the straight-ahead kind of realistic way. That if you want to know the truth of the scene, that you have to kind of come at it from another angle. Plus, it's just, for me at least, a more natural and a lot more fun way to write. But the book, from a serious perspective, is about the television as a great social experiment in which, suddenly one day every American household had a television in the middle of it, and once it was there, it sort of took the place of the family hearth, right? And so we had this glowing TV rather than a fire to gather around, and of course it became the family medium. That is to say, you couldn't actually, at least in my household, talk to anybody without having sort of to deal with the fact that the TV was on. And so, I mean, if you started talking, someone would say, "Be quiet, I can't hear the show. Go in another room." So I was looking at the ways in which the television set became part of the family, and the kind of changes that both, because I have a lot of affection in some ways for those old TV shows, but a lot of the social dysfunction and unhappiness that came out of that as well for the first televisual generation. And I assume it's still pretty much the same, although I don't know. There's a lot of competition now, with the computer, etc. I did another book that was more about having to live your life online, and that's Requiem. Yes, so it's hate. No, I don't think there's any hate in the book. There is anger in the book. There's a lot of pain in the book, especially in the part of the boy. I think his name is Chris, isn't it? I usually give my alter ego the name Chris. For me, the book it's also a book about depression. Yeah, it's also a book about depression, sort of my trying to create. I mean, one of the things that people are asking now sociologically is why are Americans so unhappy? Why do they take so many psychoactive drugs? Why is Prozac like taking a vitamin from so many Americans? So one of the things that I'm doing is relating the problem of depression to TV and to the fact that families didn't have a human relationship to each other anymore, or not certainly wasn't what it was. Not in my household, not in the 50s in suburbia. So that's sort of the book's interest. As for the stories themselves and their sort of surreal playfulness, it's funny. All of my work has this sort of dialogue going on between this balancing act between the playfulness and the fun and the humor of the story, and the sort of grim realities that it attempts to address. So most people, when they read my work, say it was very funny and disturbing. And I sort of like that, actually. That seems right to me. That's sort of who I am. Yeah, that's sort of who I am.